There is a word in Russian military slang that no army should ever need. The word is obnutsya, to be zeroed. It does not mean to be killed by the enemy. It does not mean to fall in combat, or to be lost to a mine, or to be cut down by a drone strike. To be zeroed means to be executed, by your own side. Shot on the orders of your own commander, in front of your own unit, as a warning to everyone else who might think about refusing the next suicidal assault. In February 2026, 4 Russian soldiers, all fugitives now living outside Russia, sat in front of BBC cameras and described on record what that word looks like in practice. One of them, a 35-year-old former special needs teacher from Kungur in the Ural Mountains named Ilya, said he was mobilized in May 2024 alongside 78 other men from the Perm region. He is the only one still alive. He described watching 4 soldiers shot at close range by commanders in Russian-occupied Donetsk after they tried to flee the front line. He described torture, electrocution, starvation, being urinated on, administered to men who refused orders. He described commanders confiscating the bank cards of the dead. Another soldier, a former dishwasher repairman from Moscow called Dima, described stumbling upon a pit containing roughly 20 bodies, all Russian soldiers, all killed by their own side. Ex-convicts brought to the unit and then zeroed. Their bank cards, like the others, had been taken. This is the story of what is happening inside Russia's army when nobody is looking. Not the story of Ukrainian drones, or HIMARS, or bonus munitions, or any of the weapons we cover so often on this channel. This is the story of how Russia is killing itself. Start with the numbers, because the numbers are staggering. As of late April 2026, Ukraine's General Staff estimates total Russian combat losses at approximately 1,328,820 personnel, killed, wounded, captured, and missing, since the full-scale invasion began on February 24, 2022. That figure includes roughly 1,180 losses in the 24 hours prior to the most recent update. Mediazona, the independent Russian outlet that cross-references open-source data, social media posts, and probate registry records, had confirmed by name the deaths of over 100,000 Russian soldiers by late April 2026, with 7,043 of those being officers. The UK Ministry of Defense estimated in February 2026 that more than 1.2 million Russian troops had been killed or injured, with daily losses averaging between 900 and 1,500 throughout 2025. Those are the casualties inflicted by Ukraine. Now consider what Russia is doing to itself. In November 2022, Alexander Khodakovsky, the former security minister of the so-called Donetsk People's Republic, a figure who was at the time firmly on Russia's side, made a claim so extraordinary that it was initially dismissed as hyperbole. He told the Institute for the Study of War that Russian friendly fire may have caused up to 60% of total Russian casualties between May and November of that year. 60%. More than half of all Russian losses in that 6-month period, he argued, were inflicted not by Ukrainian forces, but by Russia's own artillery, its own drones, its own disastrous coordination. Even if Khodakovsky was exaggerating, even if the real figure was half that, the implication is devastating. It suggests that for a significant portion of this war, Russia's most lethal enemy was itself. To understand how an army kills itself on this scale, you need to understand the layers. This is not one problem, it is at least 4, and they feed into each other in a cycle that Russia has shown no ability, and possibly no desire, to break. The first layer is friendly fire, born of incompetence. In September 2023, at least 60 Russian soldiers were killed or wounded near the village of Opytne, close to Donetsk's Sergei Prokofiev International Airport, when their own artillery opened fire on them during a chaotic retreat. A Russian drone operator, watching the withdrawal from above, mistook his own retreating troops for advancing Ukrainians and called in a fire mission. The result was 27 dead and 34 wounded, according to Ukrainian Member of Parliament Yuri Misyagin, a figure subsequently confirmed by pro-Kremlin military bloggers. Half the wounded lost limbs. This was not an isolated event. It was a symptom of an army that lacks the basic command and control infrastructure to tell friend from foe. Russian units in Ukraine have, for much of the war, relied on a patchwork of commercial radios, civilian smartphones, and, most critically, thousands of illicitly acquired Starlink terminals smuggled into the theater via Central Asia. When that digital nervous system was ripped away in early February 2026, after SpaceX implemented a whitelist system at Ukraine's request, the consequences were immediate and catastrophic. The Atesh partisan movement reported that Russian units in both eastern and southern Ukraine were left unable to communicate. The 122nd Motorized Rifle Regiment near Kupiansk and the 1152nd Regiment in the Zaporizhia region saw command effectively paralyzed, according to Atesh's sources. In the Zaporizhia sector, a complete breakdown in communications led to a textbook friendly fire incident. Russian units, having no information about each other's positions, opened fire on their own assault group. 12 soldiers were destroyed, not by Ukraine, but by their comrades. Sergei Beskresnov, an advisor to Ukraine's defense minister, was blunt about the result. The enemy, he said, didn't just have a problem, it was a disaster. Command had collapsed. Assault operations had stopped across many sectors of the front. And then, in March 2026, Russia launched its spring offensive anyway, at what one analysis described as 60% coordination capacity. The result was an 80% casualty rate in the opening days. Russia was sending men into battle knowing that its own communications architecture was broken, knowing that the risk of friendly fire was not a marginal concern, but a structural certainty. The second layer is deliberate violence against their own. This is where the story turns darker, because friendly fire implies an accident. What the BBC documentary, The Zero Line Inside Russia's War, revealed in February 2026 was not accidental, it was policy. The practice of zeroing, executing soldiers who refuse orders, functions as a management tool inside Russian units. Ilya, the former teacher from Kungur, described the mechanics plainly. A commander speaks over the radio. He identifies a soldier. He gives the order, "Zero this one," and it is done. Dima, the former paramedic, confirmed the pattern from a different unit, the 25th Brigade. The bodies of the zeroed are not evacuated. Their possessions are looted. This is not new in the Russian military tradition. Barrier troops, units positioned behind the front line to prevent retreat, are a concept that dates back to the Soviet Union's Order No. 227 in 1942, Stalin's infamous "not one step back" directive. But the modern Russian version has mutated into something more grotesque. Reports compiled by the Jamestown Foundation, drawing on data from Novaya Gazeta Europa, identified more than 135 cases between February and October 2023 alone, in which Russian soldiers were charged with killing either civilians or other Russian military personnel. And those are only the cases that reached military courts in the occupied territories, a fraction of the true total. In the Kupiansk sector, Ukrainian intelligence reported in early 2025 that Russian commanders were threatening soldiers with execution if they failed to retake positions from which they had previously retreated under Ukrainian fire. The Khortytsia group of forces cited intercepted communications in which the threats were explicit: retake the position or die, not at the hands of the Ukrainians, at the hands of your own officers. The third layer is mutiny, the soldiers fighting back. Near Bakhmut, in mid-2025, a Russian platoon reportedly refused to launch a high-risk assault. Instead of following orders, the troops shot and killed their platoon commander. Then, they surrendered to Ukrainian forces. The incident was reported by multiple sources and commented on by former US Navy SEAL and analyst Chuck Ferrer, who described Russian morale as abysmal. But the most striking incident occurred near the settlement of Nizhnya Duvanka in the Luhansk region, also in mid-2025, as Russian losses officially crossed the 1 million mark. Several Russian soldiers turned on their own barrier troops, the very men stationed behind the front line to stop them from retreating. They shot and killed the military police platoon commander and 2 of his subordinates. Then they seized vehicles and fled deep into Russian territory. A frantic search operation followed. The Russian authorities treated it as a criminal matter, desertion, murder, rather than as what it clearly was, a breaking point. Soldiers who had been told they would die if they retreated and die if they advanced chose a third option. They killed the men enforcing the death sentence and ran. Reports from the Kupiansk front in the same period described similar patterns on a wider scale. Soldiers were killing officers, stealing trucks, and vanishing. The Euromaidan press described the Kupiansk sector as a mass execution zone, not because of Ukrainian fire, but because of the suicidal assaults Russian commanders were ordering into what Ukrainian forces had turned into a kill funnel, with drone and artillery fire converging from both flanks. As we covered in our earlier video on Ukraine's drone war, the asymmetry here is devastating. Ukrainian FPV drone operators can track and destroy Russian infantry moving across open terrain with extraordinary precision. The soldiers being sent into these kill zones know this. They have watched the groups that went before them and seen that almost nobody comes back. The fourth layer is the dehumanization of the dead. In March 2026, Ukraine's military intelligence, the HUR, released intercepted communications that added a final, macabre detail to this picture. Russian commanders were ordering troops to behead their own dead soldiers and bring the severed heads back with identification documents, rather than evacuating complete bodies from the battlefield. The intercepted conversation was chillingly matter-of-fact. One soldier explains the logic. It is hard to carry the bodies out, especially when they have been on the battlefield for extended periods. So the order is to cut off the head, bring the head together with the documents. Officers using call signs FAC and Aladdin were identified as implementing the orders within formations linked to the 12th Guards Tank Regiment. The soldiers in the intercept were aware of how this sounded. One urged another to move the conversation to private messages, not out of moral horror, but out of fear that a battalion commander might overhear. The concern was not the act, it was being caught discussing it. Step back and look at the system that produces all of this, because the individual incidents, the zeroing, the fragging, the beheadings, the friendly fire, are not aberrations. They are the predictable output of an army built on a specific set of structural failures. The first failure is training. Mediazona's year-end summary for 2025 described an army that had shifted decisively away from armored assaults, not because the tactic was flawed, but because Russia was running out of equipment to lose. In its place, commanders adopted infiltration tactics, small groups of 1 to 3 infantrymen sent to seep past Ukrainian positions. These groups suffer massive attrition from drones and artillery on the approach. The few who survive accumulate in forward positions until a critical mass is reached to launch an assault. The men being fed into this process are receiving as little as 1 week of training before being deployed. 1 week! 7 days to learn how to survive on the most drone-saturated, artillery-intensive battlefield on Earth. The spring 2026 offensive was launched with soldiers who had been prepared for 7 days. The 80% casualty rate was the result. The second failure is communications. Russia's dependence on smuggled Starlink terminals, a dependency that grew over 2 years to encompass nearly all operational command and control, was a vulnerability so obvious that even pro-Kremlin bloggers warned about it. When SpaceX flipped the switch in late January 2026, 90% of Russian units lost connectivity overnight. Fire coordination, drone data transmission, basic unit-to-unit communication, all of it went dark. Russia had built its entire command architecture on an American commercial satellite network that could be, and was, turned off with a single software update. The scramble to replace it with Russian satellite internet terminals, bulky dishes that face southeast, require line of sight, and cannot be concealed under protective covers, has been slow, expensive, and tactically inadequate. Russian propagandist Yuri Podolyaka captured the mood of the pro-war establishment when he said simply, "Our communications are in chaos." The third failure is culture. The Foreign Policy Journal published an extensive analysis in 2025, examining why Russian soldiers do not revolt, even as they are treated as, in the journal's words, disposable infantry. The answer lies in a culture of institutionalized brutality that begins the moment a soldier enters the military. Dedovshchina, the Russian tradition of extreme hazing, breaks soldiers down to the point where they accept the tactics of their commanders without question. Repeated exposure to violence normalizes it. The cycle reproduces itself. Men who were brutalized become men who brutalize. This is why the fragging incidents, as significant as they are, have not cascaded into a systemic collapse. The same culture that produces the suicidal assaults also produces soldiers conditioned to endure them. The men who mutiny at Nizhnya Duvanka are the exception, not the rule. And Russia's military police are hunting them with exactly the ruthlessness you would expect. There is a temptation, when covering stories like this, to treat them as signs of imminent Russian collapse. They are not, or at least not yet. Russia has sustained this rate of loss for over 4 years. It has fed more than 1 million men into the grinder. The February 2026 report from The Telegraph noted that, for the first time since the invasion, Russia was losing more soldiers than it could recruit, 40,000 per month since November 2025, against a recruitment pipeline that could no longer keep pace. But the machine has not stopped. What these stories do reveal is something more fundamental about the nature of this war. Russia is not simply fighting Ukraine. It is fighting itself, in the most literal sense possible. Its soldiers are being killed by their own artillery, executed by their own commanders, hunted by their own military police when they try to flee, and dismembered by their own comrades when they die. The army that Vladimir Putin calls a force of heroes is an army at war with its own personnel. As we covered in our previous video on Ukraine's drone ecosystem, Ukraine now outproduces Russia in FPV drones, and has built an interceptor fleet that accounts for 30% of all air defense kills. The unmanned systems forces, comprising just 2.2% of the army, generate 35% of all results, at a cost of $878 per kill. That external pressure is immense and growing. But it is the internal pressure that may prove more corrosive in the long run. An army can sustain enormous losses from the enemy and continue fighting if its cohesion holds. An army that is killing its own men, that is executing soldiers for refusing suicide missions, that is beheading its own dead to avoid the burden of recovering bodies, that is watching its barrier troops murdered by the soldiers they were supposed to control, is an army whose cohesion is not holding. It is fraying, thread by thread, in ways that do not show up on situation maps, but that matter enormously for what comes next. Ilya, the former teacher from Kungur, the sole survivor of his 79-man mobilization group, put it in terms that no strategic analyst could improve upon. He described what happened when communications collapsed, when commanders lost control, when the chain of command dissolved into fear and confusion. He did not use military jargon. He said, "They begin destroying themselves." That is the most dangerous thing happening to the Russian army right now, and it isn't coming from Ukraine.